Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Today we have Marie with us. How are you doing, Marie?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, Marie, you have a BA in English Literature. You began in social media with the Goodman's Project, and now you're a diversity and inclusion consultant at your own company, hashtag Compassion Combos, and you're the co-founder and CEO of Essteem World. Can you walk us through how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Most of my career has been, I would say, a little bit eclectic. I've taken different routes, and mostly is because as a military spouse, my husband's done multiple deployments. So that's really where I've dabbled in different industries, and I've learned a lot because I've always had this interest in social impact and making a difference. So every job I've had in my career has been focused on how do I contribute to making a difference, and how do we continue to bring others into the fold so that they can be part of like a social impact movement.
Wonderful. You shared on Twitter how inclusion and belonging needs to be ingrained in a company culture and value, and how diversity is great, but our company is ready to focus on inclusion for 2021. Can you elaborate on what you meant by that?
What I meant is that a lot of companies, they start with a thought about creating like a D&I initiative, but the focus is usually on diversity and who they're going to hire, what type of diversity hire. But the emphasis needs to be on inclusion and belonging. So once you hire someone, what are you going to do to make sure that they feel like they're included? What are you going to do to make sure that your team creates a trusted and psychologically safe environment for that person? And what are they doing to look at the intersection of the different types of diversity? Because it's not just a Black woman or Black man or a Latina, it's people with disabilities and those who are LGBTQ. So really being mindful of what inclusion and belonging looks like for them.
Do you have any examples when this has been done well?
That's a good question. And the fact that I have to think about it is really in a way kind of painful because I'm thinking of a company that has done it well. And granted, I don't know all companies, but in my personal experience, no, I haven't met a company that I can say, wow, they nailed it on inclusion, but I'm sure there's some out there. And I would love to hear how they're doing it. And it's not about just measuring metrics, but really looking at how are they creating that space for people.
Do you think part of the reason for that is that a lot of times DEI work is thought of as an afterthought versus like the core of how companies are built?
Yes, I think that's a major part of it. It's like, and now people, lately there's been this talk about D&I being great for business and innovation, but it has to be part of a company's DNA. It's got to be ingrained and really part of their mission and values, and not just, as you mentioned, an afterthought, like, hey, this would be great if we had this. But really, this is who we are, and this is why we value different thoughts, like experiences, cultures, and all that. So, yes.
Wonderful. Changing gears a little bit more to you, what has your experience been like as a woman in tech?
Well, I started being a founder in tech has been very interesting because in one way I'm in a place where I'm listening and hearing from other women and their experiences. So it helps me as a founder to be more intentional and mindful when speaking to hiring managers and other tech companies about why it's important to create these inclusive work cultures, because I get to really speak to these women and really understand how they feel. And even though I've been in different industries, for me, it's always the same story about feeling like an outsider or feeling as if you're not valued or respected. So for me, it's thinking not so much just about myself as a founder and as a Black woman, but also about the women that are trying to get into tech and are trying to find these jobs. How do I help them?
Definitely. And being a founder and kind of making your way up, how has your community and advocates and supporters kind of played a role in your career to this point?
I think I've been fortunate in that I've had like great support networks and systems. My co-founder now is a white male and an ally, and I feel comfortable enough to be myself. I feel comfortable enough to share my truth. And I think I've felt that for many years, starting with the Good Men Project. I think that was like, that built the foundation for me to really feel that I can own my space and I can be true to myself without having to think about how others are perceiving me or the assumptions they're making about me. So I'm thankful for that. I am grateful. And, you know, I've had different experiences with maybe clients or customers, but I have to say within the work that I've been doing, it's been good.
That's amazing to hear, and I think our audience will really resonate with that. That is a possible thing to find within this community when sometimes it can feel like you're really isolated and alone. You don't have a lot of people in your corner.
Yeah, and I have amazing other Black women founders that I can talk to and connect with and just say, hey, I'm having a rough day, and just be myself. So that's always helpful.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You mentioned on your Twitter, you discussed how Black women are the most intersected women in America and carry the burden of everyone else's struggles. And when it all is said and done, like, what do you have left for yourselves? So how do you keep yourself from running on empty and take care of yourself?
Setting and enforcing boundaries. And this is not something I always knew how to do. Like I had to really learn. And I think there's something great about getting older and being more mature and being able to speak your mind. I think it's saying, you know, I need time right now. So it's great. Like I can say to my co-founder, I'm going to take a couple of hours because I've had a long day and a rough day and I need to just disconnect and not feel bad about it. And also with my family, just being honest with them, like, I need this moment. And I found that if I don't do that, then I'm not my best. I'm not presenting my best. I can't help anyone. You can't help anyone if you're running on empty. So just being mindful of like, hey, I need, whether it's just an emotional break, a mental health break, whatever it is, I just need to give myself back some of what I've given out. Otherwise, you know, there's nothing for me to give and I won't be effective and I won't be able to be the leader I want to be.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and oftentimes we can get nervous about setting boundaries because of how people respond. If there's shame around that, but I think it's important if you're doing something to take care of yourself and your needs that you're not responsible for how someone else reacts to that boundary because you're taking care of yourself. And I think that can be hard to deal with when we're met with shame or judgment or anger.
No, you're right. It's hard. And I think as women, we're harder on ourselves. And I think sometimes people are hard on us, especially when it comes to dealing with or taking care of ourselves or an emotional life or health. Just being mindful of that. And it's okay to just take a moment and say, no, you know what? I'm gonna just take a break and then I'll come back and respond to that. So yeah, giving us ourselves the permission.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And not apologizing for it and just taking your space. Because then, like you said, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think sometimes we overextend ourselves and want to be like, oh, I'm sorry. But like, then we're again getting on that empty.
Exactly. And I love that you mentioned the apologizing. I had to learn to really, when I'm, you know, sending an email, not to, you know, I'm like, if I didn't make a mistake or I didn't do something, don't apologize, just address what was done. And so it's hard, but I kind of stop and tell myself, before you write this, what are you sorry about? And that's, I think we do that so often. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You know, even if it's a compliment, it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, no, this is nothing. It's like, no, just own it.
I've switched from instead of saying I'm sorry, I focus on what I'm grateful for. So if I'm slow to respond and saying like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm like, thank you for your patience. And
Yeah.
switching that out, that way you kind of keep your power, but you're still acknowledging and you're expressing gratitude is an easier way to shift
I
that.
love that. I love that. It's really great. So I appreciate you sharing that tip. That's cool. Like expressing gratitude. So I'm gonna think about that when I'm writing my email.
Awesome. Is there any women in tech in history or in current day that have inspired your career?
It's funny when I was thinking about who in tech inspires me. I would have to say Arlen Hamilton, and that's because she's a VC, and I think her story is just so unique. And just to see how she's just moved up and really has created a space for overlooked and underrepresented founders is just, it gives hope, to another Black woman and say, okay, you know what, this can be done. It takes work, it takes commitment, but it could be done. And and I love reading her stuff on Twitter anyway. So I think she has a really great sense of humor. So I would have to say, seeing her career trajectory and writing the book and everything that she's done is inspiring.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a great one to choose. Do you have any advice for other women in tech?
I would have to say imposter syndrome. I hear it so much. And I want to say that one of the things I learned is that I know Google has this great I am remarkable training. And the reminder is that if it's based on facts, that it's not like bragging. And so I think if women in tech could just keep that in mind, like write down your accomplishments and know that these are things I've done. Like if you were to just write your accomplishments and look them over, you'd be astonished at all that you've done. But it's not bragging and it's not you won't have that imposter syndrome if you could back it up with, you know what, I did this, like I was able to really help this team, finish this code. I was able to develop this app. I did all this. So it's so funny how even for myself, imposter syndrome creeps up. But if you can go back to look at something that reminds you, oh, you know what? I got this. I can handle this. I've done this before. I've been in this space, and I got it. So just keep reminding yourself and have something that you can look at, that you can go back to and say, nope, if I did this all these things in the past, what I have to do now is nothing, and I can do it. So it's hard. Imposter syndrome is something we have to address and really do our best to overcome. And it's not going to be easy, but having having the facts, having the backup to prove yourself really helps.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Marie, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to be here. So I appreciate it. Thank you.